Chapter 29, The Next Day. George huffed and puffed as he sprinted the last few blocks to the bus stop. He couldn't believe he hadn't heard his alarm go off. He had stayed at the office till 3 a.m. with Jose and Michael trying to get caught up, so he hadn't gotten much sleep. It was Thursday, and with one day before the biggest presentation of his life, he needed to talk with Joy and Jack more now than ever. As the bus was pulling away from the stop, George ran up alongside it and banged on the window, trying to get someone's attention, anyone's attention, but no one heard him, and the bus took off. George went back to the bench and sat down, feeling tired and dejected. Now he wouldn't get to tell them about his incredible day yesterday and how his team had responded unbelievably to his enthusiasm. He wanted to tell them about how he had held a team meeting and had talked about what it meant to be a chief energy officer. He had met with Jose and had told him he was giving him a raise if he didn't get fired. And more importantly, George had told him that no matter what, he would always be there as a mentor and resource for Jose. He shared the love with all his team, and he could tell they felt it. The team was energized, and the ideas were flowing, and they had accomplished more in one day than they had all month. George's only concern was that more people hadn't worked late with him. Tonight they would need to pull another late night to get the presentation, the graphics, the sound effects, and the overall flow perfected, and he would need more than 2 members of his team to work late. He needed to ask Joy and Jack their advice about what to do, and now he had missed the important opportunity. I'll just wait for the next bus and use this time to think of a solution, he thought, trying to stay positive about the situation. He was becoming a believer and was learning not to let little setbacks crush his spirit. Trust, he kept saying to himself as he focused on his breathing the way Joy had taught him last week. When George arrived at his office, he was surprised to find a letter sitting on his chair. It had been written on computer paper, and when he opened it up, he couldn't help but smile. It was from Joy. It said, "Now, George, don't think I wrote this and drove the bus at the same time. I'm not that good. Janice wrote it for me when we realized you weren't going to be on the bus today. Jack figured you probably stayed at work really late to get prepared for the presentation and got a late start this morning. We had a hunch that you would need to know rule number 9 more now than ever, so Marty ran this letter up to your office. Here it is. Rule number 9, drive with purpose. Purpose is the ultimate fuel for our journey through life, George. When we drive with purpose, we don't get tired or bored, and our engines don't burn out. I know you're probably pumped up for this product launch, and you should be, but you have to ask yourself, what's going to energize you after the launch? Every job on the planet, even that of a professional athlete or a movie star, can get old and mundane if we let it. Purpose keeps it fresh. Let me give you an example. There's a story about when President Lyndon Johnson visited NASA, and as he was walking the halls, he came across a janitor who was cleaning up a storm, like the Energizer Bunny with a mop in his hand. The president walked over to the janitor and told him he was the best janitor he had ever seen. And the janitor replied, "Sir, I'm not just a janitor. I helped put a man on the moon." See, George, even though he was cleaning floors, he had a bigger purpose and vision for his life. This is what kept him going and helped him excel in his job. People call me a bus driver, but I see my purpose as much more than that. I'm an energy ambassador and coach, helping people transform their energy and lives. Sure, driving a bus gets old, every job does, but knowing I've saved lives and wondering whose life I'm going to touch today, now that keeps me going and the energy flowing. That's why my passengers stay on my bus, because I'm driving with purpose. When you fuel up with purpose, you find the excitement in the mundane, the passion in the everyday, and the extraordinary in the ordinary. Purpose is what life is all about. Everyone's out there trying to find their purpose when all you have to do is find the bigger purpose in the here and now, and your purpose will find you. There's no spirit in companies anymore because there's no spirit in the people who work for these companies. Unfortunately, too many companies have been far too successful at creating a culture and system that zaps people's energy and spirit. And Jack says, then they wonder why they have morale, retention, negativity, and performance issues. Don't be one of these leaders who get inspired only when there's a big project or deadline or job at stake. It won't last, and it won't lead to greatness. Foster spirit and allow it to move through your team by fueling up with purpose. Find the bigger purpose and vision before your product launch and let it fuel you and your team every day thereafter. I can't tell you what this purpose and vision are. Only you can decide this. Remember, you're driving the bus. You have the best view and vision, so you'll also need to communicate your vision and purpose with your passengers. Once you find your bigger purpose and vision, then share it with your team. Once they are a part of this bigger purpose and vision, they will work harder and longer for you. Jack told me to tell you that he had spent too many long nights by himself before big presentations until he had learned this rule. So drive with purpose today and every day and cultivate it in your team. And they'll not only stay in your bus when it's cruising, but they'll also get out to help push it when it breaks down. Shared purpose keeps a team energized and together. Share it, George. Joy. George couldn't help but smile and shake his head. Less than 2 weeks ago, he had a flat tire and couldn't catch a break. Now, after missing the bus, he still received rule number 9, and Joy and Jack had provided him with exactly the answers he sought, as if knowing the questions he was going to ask. The only question he still needed to answer was what his bigger purpose and vision were. It's hard to get excited about light bulbs, he thought, as he looked at Joy's letter and realized there was still one sheet he hadn't read yet. He placed it on top of the other pages and chuckled once he realized it was from Marty. "Hi, George. Marty here." There was a study conducted where 2 airplane design teams were separated. One team saw a model of the finished product and was given a vision that they were building the fastest, newest, most advanced airplane ever built. The other team were separated into small groups who were told to design each piece without knowing what the end design and vision would be. Not surprisingly, the team who had a vision for what they were building worked twice as long and hard and finished in half the time as the other group. "Thought you should know this, Marty." This gave George an idea. It was so good that if Marty was in front of him, George would hug him. Well, maybe not hug him, but definitely give him a high five. George called his team into the conference room for a meeting where he was going to share his ideas with them. His team was on the bus. Now he wanted them to propel the bus forward with purpose, vision, and inspiration. He just hoped his ideas would work. Chapter 30. The team gets inspired. Instead of telling the team his bigger purpose and vision, George had an idea to let his team formulate a shared purpose and vision together. Rather than being told what their purpose and vision should be, he thought it would be more powerful, meaningful, and inspiring if the team formulated what they wanted it to be. And powerful it was. George explained the several examples Joy had shared with him, and immediately the team ran with it. They started sharing ideas back and forth. Like a game of ping pong, the energy was bouncing around the room while Jamie wrote all the ideas on a whiteboard. Then over the course of an hour and many discussions later, they narrowed it down to 3 central principles that everyone, including George, agreed on. For today and every day hereafter, they would not just be a team who brought new light bulbs to market, but rather a team that, 1, strive for greatness and produce great ideas, great marketing campaigns, and great results. 2, worked with purpose and spirit to develop chief energy officers, not only within their team, but within their entire company by sharing the positive energy. 3, shared the light. No longer would they be people who just made light bulbs. Instead, they would see themselves as people whose light bulbs helped a child read in bed before bedtime, an elderly parent find their medicine at night, a working parent wake up early for work, or a college student study for an important exam. Their work would light up the rooms and the lives of every man, woman, and child who ever turned on a light switch and benefited from the light of their bulb. George noticed that the energy in the room was transformed. In the beginning of the meeting, they had all seemed excited, but now something was very different. Instead of each person trying to shine above the others, they were all working together, contributing to the collective whole. Gone were the egos and personal agendas. The infighting had disappeared. They were fueling up with purpose and vision, and were now contributing to something bigger than themselves. Like a successful rock band where each member plays a different instrument, that magically contributes to an incredible sound. Each member of his team was playing their parts, and the music was perfect. They were energized, synchronized, and fast becoming a team. They were on George's bus together with a shared vision, shared purpose, and collective, powerful force of positive energy, all focused in the same direction. That night, as George looked around the office at 2 a.m., he knew his idea had worked. He knew Joy and Jack had been right. He didn't have to work the late nights alone anymore. The team weren't just riding on his bus. They were pushing it from behind as well. George had a big smile on his face when he realized that every member of his team had stayed late with him to get ready for the product launch. Yes, they were on his bus, and they were an energized, purpose-driven team. This was a good thing, because tomorrow was game day, and it would be the biggest triumph or most painful defeat of their professional lives. Chapter 31, Game Day. It was Friday, game day. Less than 2 weeks ago, George had thought this day would be the end of his career at the NRG company. Now he hoped it was a new beginning and a new opportunity that would allow him to share all the principles he had learned on the energy bus. He should have been tired, but he wasn't. His wife had given him a big kiss as he left the house, and he felt good knowing that no matter what happened at work, their marriage was back on track. The kids were responding really well to his love and positive reinforcement. And even the dog was enjoying being pet more. They might be poor if he lost his job, but at least they would all be together. He had been thrilled when his wife had asked him the other night what he had done with the grumpy old George, and he had given her a big hug when she said, "It feels like I'm meeting the man I fell in love with all over again. I don't know where you have been, but I'm glad you're back." I am back, he thought, as he sat on his usual bench, waiting for Joy's bus, and I certainly don't ever want to go back to the places I've been. He couldn't imagine that happening, though. Joy had infected him with the positive energy bug, and he would do whatever it took to keep that energy flowing. George looked at his watch and noticed that the bus was a little late. He was looking forward to seeing Joy, Jack, Marty, and the other passengers one last time. His car would be ready today after work, and if by chance he still had his job, he would drive from now on to save time and bus fare. He hadn't thought of it before, but it suddenly occurred to him that today would be his last day on the energy bus. As he thought about how much he would miss everyone, even Marty, Joy's bus arrived and stopped to pick him up one last time. When the doors opened, a man walked out repeating to himself, but loud enough for others to overhear, "Too blessed to be stressed." The man turned around and shouted, "Thanks, Joy." "Don't forget, too blessed to be stressed," Joy shouted back. Another energy convert, George thought, as he smiled and walked on the bus, only to be greeted by a loud applause from all the passengers. "We all know that today's the day, George, and we just want you to know that we're behind you and sending positive energy your way today," Joy said. George thanked her, Jack, and Marty for the letter, and he thanked all the energy bus passengers for their support over the past 2 weeks. He told them about the team's incredible day and night at work yesterday, and how rule number 9 had made all the difference. "Thank you for being on my energy team," he shouted to everyone. "So how you feeling today, sugar?" Joy asked in a motherly tone. "I'm feeling good. The team is ready. I'm ready. Nervous, of course, but who wouldn't be?" "That's right, George. Who wouldn't be nervous? It's a sign of fear. We all have fear, but the key to success is that your trust is bigger than your fear. A little fear is good, but it is weak energy. It runs out. Trust is the high-octane fuel that will take your bus wherever it needs to go." "I like that," George said, knowing that trust was a theme that kept on coming up in his life. "It's like I was telling the gentleman who just got off the bus. All of us focus so much on what stresses us that we forget all the things we got to be thankful for. So when you head into that meeting today, don't be stressed. Instead, feel blessed. Be thankful you had this job all these years, while so many are unemployed. Be thankful you have a supportive team and a family. Even be thankful that you can walk and talk. If you really started to count your blessings, you would realize that they are greater than the stars in the sky. When you feel blessed, you don't have time to be stressed. And this feeling of gratitude will fuel your performance today. It will lift you up and carry you over the finish line." George looked around the bus and noticed that everyone was intently listening to Joy, soaking up every word. They loved her as much as he did. He noticed an elderly gentleman sitting in the middle of the bus whom he hadn't seen before. The man was thin and wore a hat and glasses. He had one of those wrinkled faces you find in elderly people that could tell you about the places they have been, the things they have seen, the lives they have lived, and the lessons they have learned, if you would only take the time to listen to them. The man had a sparkle in his eye that lit up when he made eye contact with George. George acknowledged him, and the man lifted his hat and nodded, with a greeting in return. Yup, Joy thought, as she watched the interaction in her rearview mirror. The right people certainly come on our bus at the right time, just when we need them. I'd like you to meet Eddie, she said, directing George to the elderly gentleman. Eddie met at the home where my father lives. Eddie's wife also had Alzheimer's, and we met at the facility. Unfortunately, Eddie's wife passed on, and he had a real tough time with it. But after a year of mourning, he's now living his life again, and I'd say he has more energy and is busier than most 20-year-olds I know. Tell him how old you are, Eddie. 88, he replied. That's right, George, 88, and he plays the piano daily, writes poetry, travels the country by train, visiting relatives, and takes my bus when he's home to meet new people, go to new places, and do new things. Eddie has taught me the secret to life, and it is this. The goal in life is to live young, have fun, and arrive at your final destination as late as possible with a smile on your face. It is such a powerful lesson and has made such a difference in my life, I made it rule number 10. Show 'em, Danny. Rule number 10, have fun and enjoy the ride. And you know what that final destination I'm talking about is, right, George? No one can escape it. We're all going there. But the important thing is how much we enjoy the ride until we get there. After all, we only have one life and one ride. This is not Disneyland. We only get one ride, so we might as well enjoy it to the max. Too many people think they're going to live forever. They spend their life accumulating wealth, possessions, and power, only to leave it all when their bus ride is over. It's not like you can take it with you. So what's all the fuss about? Too many people stress over too many meaningless things. People get all protective of their turf. Just watch the news. Even countries argue over borders. If people only woke up, they'd realize the whole universe is their home. Why fight over small pieces of territory when you can claim the universe as yours? Any moment they can have it all by simply enjoying the ride. But instead, people focus on the small instead of living large. They worry about promotions, deadlines, emails, and argue with coworkers and family members about the minutest things, forgetting that they will never see today again. Their bus is going through life, but they are blind to the beauty around them. Think about it. The day you die, you will still have 30 or 40 emails in your inbox that will not be answered. You'll never get it all done, so you might as well relax, take a deep breath, and enjoy the ride. Tell him about that study of 95-year-olds, Marty. Marty perked up. I loved this study. They asked a bunch of 95-year-olds. I don't know where they got them all. Florida, I guess. But anyway, they asked them if they could do it all over again and live their life again, what would they do differently? The three things that almost all of them said were, 1, they would reflect more, enjoy more moments, more sunrises and sunsets, more moments of joy. 2, they would take more risks and chances. Life is too short not to go for it. 3, they would have left a legacy, something that would live on after they die. So you see what I'm saying, George? Learn from Eddie here. Learn from the 95-year-olds. Don't go through life with regrets. Don't be someone who looks back and says, I should have done this or that. Live and work like you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Act like a kid on Christmas morning that is always optimistic and excited about the gifts you are receiving. Don't be too stressed to feel blessed. Don't compare the success of your bus to the other buses. Just enjoy your ride. You go into that presentation today and you step on that gas pedal, have fun, and go for it. And when you blow them away and they sing your praises, you just continue to live and work each day with purpose and joy. And that's easy to remember because all you got to do is remember me, the ultimate joy. Then she looked up and laughed and said, I know, God. Sometimes I can get a little too big for my britches. Then, as the energy bus approached George's office building, she turned to George, who was quietly saving his voice for the presentation, and told him, "And when it comes to legacies, remember this. The best legacy you could leave is not some building that is named after you or a piece of jewelry, but rather a world that has been impacted and touched by your presence, your joy, and your positive actions." The bus stopped, and before George could get off the bus, the passengers came forward to give him high fives, handshakes, and hugs. Jack handed George his business card and asked that George call him to let him know how the presentation had gone, since everyone on the bus would want to know. Of course, Joy gave him the biggest hug of all, and as George walked off the bus, she stood from the top of the stairs and said, "Today is your day, George, and this is your life. You came on my bus for a reason, like I told you. That reason is today and every day after." George walked into the building thinking that this could be the last time he walked through these doors as an employee of the NRG company, or it could be his first day on the job as the Chief Energy Officer. In less than 2 hours, he would know his fate. But regardless of the outcome, he believed his bus was headed in the right direction, and he was ready to enjoy the rest of his ride.